Yes, Mr. President, I am thinking about it. I have been thinking about it for over a month now. I realize that you need an answer, and Mr. President, I have the badge right here, okay? And I will consider the Joint Chiefs position you're offering me, but I need just a little bit more time, and I know you're under a lot of pressure, but believe me, I'm under a lot of pressure too.
I want to find out what is
I tell you what, but right now I've got to do a show, so I'm going to have to call you back.
Thank you. Now,
How about if I call you tomorrow, okay? And I won't have an answer for you tomorrow. It'll be at least another week. But
what is the problem? What's going on?
I will greatly consider this, and I will give you my determination of whether I can do this for you or not, okay? We'll talk to you later, all right? Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
I haven't decided yet as to whether I will take the Joint Chiefs position that the President has offered me or not. I don't really want to, but he's very insistent on it. He's calls me every few days to find out if I'm going to take it. I just don't. I normally don't do this kind of thing. Now I have done it in the past. I did it. I did it during the Truman administration and the Eisenhower administration and Kennedy administration and into the Johnson administration. And that's when I gave it. That's a big problem. I gave this up after the Tet Offensive in '68 because I got fed up with Johnson. And look, I'm not going to get started on Johnson because the show today is not on Johnson. In fact, the show is on three important issues. Right here before you see a lot of the people here, but this is what the show is going to be about. So let me tell you about it right now. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the Virginia General Assembly's advances on gun control. They've introduced 4 laws that their House has recently sent to their Senate, and it's going to be debated. Now, let me go over these 4 with you real quick. The first one is they want to require firearms background checks on all firearms statewide. Number 2, they want to give the authority to the law enforcement agencies within Virginia to remove firearms at will from anyone that they feel like might be a risk to others or themselves. So this is where the police and the sheriff's department would get to make that decision as to whether just to come in and remove your firearms, regardless of whether you've committed a crime or not. Just a preventative measure. Number 3 is they want to limit handgun purchases to 1 gun per month. So if you go to the store and you want to buy a hunting rifle and you want to buy a shotgun or a pistol, well, now those 3, that's going to take you at least 90 days. And it'll probably put you on a suspicious list, and then the police will come confiscate your weapons because they think you might be a danger to yourself or somebody else, or I guess the squirrels or the deer or whatever you're trying to hunt. And the 4th measure is they want to let local municipalities decide whether they want to allow guns or disallow guns at certain special events. Willy-nilly. So therefore putting more power into the government's hands. And when you put power into the government hands, we're not just talking about the federal or the state, but there's also the local. The local can be just as impunitive on your freedoms as the state is or the federal government is. So you have to watch the localities. But these are the 4 things that the state of Virginia has passed in their House. They've moved to their Senate, and they're trying to get passed because what they did is they went out and they elected all of these liberals, these communists, and they put them in their legislature, and they wrote this stuff up, and they say, well, this is the will of the people. There's a mandate to have it done. That is crap. There is no mandate to have it done. Look, I don't live in Virginia, but it just really makes me mad. As I always say, what they do in other states is their business. If they want to confiscate puppies in Virginia, then that's fine with me because I'm in Texas. And so I generally only look at Texas. But the reason I'm mentioning the Virginia thing is very important because what happens in Virginia and happens in other states has a creeping faction that starts to creep across the United States, and eventually it creeps into our nation's capital. And they say, well, hey, if it's working in these states and working in those states, then maybe everybody ought to do it. And most of the time they just say everybody ought to do it all at once. That's their experiment. Amendment. That's not the way the Founding Fathers meant it to be, though. See, they've got a liberal governor, Governor Ralph Northam, and he is very liberal. In fact, one of the things he's done recently, just a few days ago, is that he banned all weapons from their state house. Now, you might say in other states, you might say, well, now that's right. That's safe. No, that's not safe. That's dangerous because they have conceal and carry laws in that state, just like we do here in Texas. And in the Texas state capitol, if you have a conceal and carry license, you can walk in. Last I heard, you could still walk in in fact, they have a separate line. So the regular security line for the folks that don't have a conceal and carry license, and then there's a special line for those who do have a conceal and carry license. Because see, once you've passed the securities of the conceal and carry license, they've deemed you a non-danger, and in fact, you're a help to law enforcement. So the more guns you have in the room, the better off you are. Now see here in this report that I have, the governor of Virginia is worried about hate groups, and he advises that they need to take these safety precaution steps to prevent hate groups. Well, okay, see, here's the thing. We've got into this system of calling certain groups hate group. And generally, this is what the left does. The liberals, what they do is that anybody who opposes them, so if they want to take your guns away and you say, no, I don't think that we should, it is the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. And they say, oh, they're a hate group. They're a hate group. What they do is they immediately put a stigma on any group that opposes them by calling them a hate group. Hate is where you have so much anger in you that you're beyond reason and cannot be coped with. That is not the case of anybody necessarily who opposes a liberal proposition or law or act. We simply want to argue reason with them, argue logic with them. But see, liberals can't argue logic. They can't argue the Constitution. Oh, they'll take the Constitution and bend it into all kinds of shapes, but they cannot argue the Constitution because each and every time they try to argue the Constitution or the laws of our land, they end up losing. That's why they have to reach into the 14th Amendment and say, oh, look, here, we found it, gay marriage. There's no gay marriage in the 14th Amendment, but somehow the liberals find it and they go, look, here it is. They find these hidden Easter eggs that nobody else can see, no logical, sane individual can see. It's because they're all mentally ill, mostly. But anyway, always beware whenever a liberal gets out there and starts talking about the hate group out there. They're generally not a hate group. They are simply somebody with an opposing opinion that the liberals can't simply defeat because they don't have the logic in their hands. You see, hate is a term used to mean a dedication to harm without reason and beyond reason. Now, there's a sheriff in Virginia who's kind of taking the lead. In fact, there's a whole bunch of sheriffs in Virginia who are saying that they're not going to follow this law. But there's one particular sheriff in particular, and his name is Scott Jenkins. Sheriff Scott Jenkins is, Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins has been one of the many sheriffs who have come out against the legislation acts. At the same time, Joe Biden wants a registry of all assault weapons in accordance with the 1934 Arms Act. See, and at the same time, Joe Biden is out there, and many times he's been saying this, that he wants a registry of all assault weapons in accordance with the 1934 Firearms Act. You see, there's three things that I identify that are dangerous about this in particular. Number one, this makes it to where people who fall below a certain income level would not be able to afford the licensing for their guns if they were to enact something like this on a federal level. So basically, you're creating something that the poor don't get it, and those who have money, or I'm not going to say the rich because there will be some medium in there, but basically the people the have-nots will not be able to afford a license. Therefore, they won't supposedly have a gun. Usually it's the people in poverty who find a weapon so they can use it in a criminal act. But the people who can afford it, then they can get a license. So that's the first thing that I find that's really bad about this idea. The second thing is that this is just another way for the government to get their hand into your pocketbook. Number three, we're one step closer to neutering the Second Amendment. You see, the Democrats have realized long ago they're not ever going to be able to repeal the Second Amendment or come up with another amendment that repeals the Second Amendment. Like they put in prohibition and then they took prohibition away. They realize that those days are gone. Meddling with the Constitution and passing amendments is way too difficult, and it's too much trouble for them. They know that most of society won't go along with it. But instead what they do is they try to smother the Constitution. So they'll take the Second Amendment and say, hey, we're not trying to change the Second Amendment. Oh, you got some kooks out there that'll say we want to do away with the Second Amendment. But the mainstream Democrats say that, like Bernie, they'll say, no, I'm not so sure that we should touch the Second Amendment, but let's create all of these other federal laws and lay on top of the Second Amendment, and we'll just smother it to death. We'll neuter it to where it might as well be repealed. So this is what the Democrats want to do, and this is why I'm bringing up Virginia, because Virginia is going after assault weapons, just like Bernie wants to do, and just like Beto wanted to do. Beto was going to go around. He just came out and said it. I'm just going to come to your door and get your assault weapon. And a lot of people said, well, you bring it on. This is not what the Founding Fathers had in mind. This is not what they had in mind at all for the Second Amendment. This idea that the Second Amendment was put there simply so that we could go deer hunting is ridiculous and retarded. And anybody who thinks that is an idiot. The Second Amendment was put there for two reasons. So that we, the people of the United States, the citizens of the United States, the patriots of the United States, could protect our country from foreign invasion. And we could protect our country, our state, from a federal invasion. When the federal government gets too big for its belt, then the fact that we have guns keeps them in check. And every country in the past that has banned their weapons, they make slaves out of their citizens. So beware of this, and beware of what's going on in Virginia. You need to keep your eye on it. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, you should watch all of my other shows. I got a whole lineup of shows of BarbWire Strategy where we talk about an ordinary man's extraordinary point of view here on BarbWire Strategy. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I really need you to subscribe. Subscribers are harder to come by than hen's teeth. So help me and the Donald out by subscribing and liking. And watch often. And stay tuned for my next show on BarbWire Strategy. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again. We'll see you later.